But we know you guys are busy. You're on a schedule. We'll get going with our original programming here today. Would love to start off this call with wins. But before we kind of jump into that, I just want to remind you guys that we have a open Q&A after wins. So these are for any questions that you guys have about business, about marketing, even questions for another client. There are things that clients are going to be able to speak and testify to that I, as a coach, can't, as somebody who doesn't even own a hammer. So would love for you guys to already be thinking about any questions that you have. I know I had a couple clients this week ask me about scheduling softwares and about insurance and questions that other clients might have answers to or experience with that I don't have that. And so would love for you guys to already be thinking about any questions for the coaches or for other clients that you'd like to get feedback from. So keep that in mind, but let's go ahead and jump into wins. I'm hoping you guys have been thinking about them. We celebrate them large or small. Would love to hear from you guys. I know that one of my clients, Copper Peaks Plumbing, they were complaining the whole month of March that things were slow. And March might just be a slow month. We could play that game all day long. Is it because of spring break? Is it because of taxes? Whatever. But we were looking at their Google business listing and we saw that their call volume in 2024 was actually up 53% this March compared to last.
That's huge.
Which is why we track.
Yeah, they've been a client for I think a couple of years now too. So that's really, really good. So anyway, what good things are happening in your guys' business? How are you growing? How are you winning?
I got a small win.
Let's hear it, Mr. Jordan.
We had our call.
You got to meet with me this week as your win.
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you.
So I'm glad you got to see me too.
Yeah.
So we had I had a client that I was thinking needed to be a cost plus job, kind of like what we talked about, but I wasn't exactly sure how to approach him with it. And then for whatever reason, after we talked, I was like, I'm just going to hit it. And so I called him and just kind of gave him the rundown of how I think we need to handle this project. And he goes, actually, I prefer that. So I just had the feeling it needed to be that type of project. And so, I mean, it just kind of set the stage early for how the project's going to go. And we still have some planning and things of that nature, but yeah, I thought that was a great win.
Dude, that's awesome. And as part of that win, just to understand this a little bit further, Jordan, as part of the win that it's like you were hesitant in the past to do things in a certain way that was a lot more beneficial to you, but instead you decided to go for it. And once you went for it, they said like, absolutely.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's kind of something that I want to highlight with people real quick, almost as like a coaching moment, is a lot of times we come to our businesses with these preconceptions because maybe it's the way that we did it when we worked for another company, or maybe it's the way that we know another company does things, or maybe it's the way that things have always been done. So we like bring these preconceptions into our business about how things are going to go and how things need to be, especially when it comes to like estimating and pricing with the customer. But what I have learned in business is that you are in a lot more control of those things than you might previously think. What I'm really advocating for is the ideas that we have in our heads of the way that things have to be, especially when it comes to cash flow management and pricing. Just get rid of all of those. I remember one time, HVAC company I work with here in town, Eklund Heat and Air. They were they're an HVAC company. They're primarily a service company, but they do a lot of like new construction, commercial work. and they were working with these GCs on these big residential projects, right, to install new HVAC systems. And the owner, he was like, dude, honestly, like, I'm not profitable on these jobs, and it like keeps my guys busy, but it's like I'm not making really any money from it, and it's like taking my guys away. And so I told him, and I said, just ask him for the price point that you want to do each one of these spec homes for, and ask him for like the cash flow cycle that doesn't put you in a hole, like in a net 30, net 60, whatever it was. And so the dude just asks, and the GC says yes, right? And so a lot of times, again, we, like Jordan just shared, it's like Jordan had this preconception and he had this hesitation of the way things needed to be done, but he thought about it a little bit more, and it was like, it would really be better for me and my business, and maybe even for the customer, if I did things in this other way. He calls the customer and just explains that. He just tells the customer what he needs to do and why, and the customer says yes, right? So I just want to encourage anyone else who may be listening to that, may have hesitations, may feel like, hey, my cash flow is not where I want it to be. Price point isn't where I want it to be. A lot of times you can get that to a better spot just by taking action and asking. It's like what the good book says, ask and it will be given unto you, right? Seek and you will find, right? Anyway, don't mean to get too caught up on that. Any other wins here? Any other cool things that happened? Big things that you guys are celebrating? Just things people are happy about?
Yeah, we got one.
Fernando, let's hear it, buddy.
Yeah, so Travis gave us pretty much like a pricing sheet on how to properly price our hourly, and then also to a markup in parts. And we've closed about every job this week with that. So it's
boom. Yeah, heck yeah. And Fernando, tell everybody what kind of business you own and where you're based out of.
We're based out of Utah. We do plumbing, HVAC, and drains. So
okay.
Service, install, repair, and it's
awesome.
We were kind of slow, but we implemented, took the pricing pretty serious, made sure that we quoted our jobs like how he helped us to. And sure enough, we closed all of them. On top of that, we had some quotes that we gave last year that called us back this year. So it was like, put some more work on the schedule.
That's great, dude. That's awesome. And I feel like that's a similar win to what Jordan just shared. It's like, hey, we did this thing that's much more beneficial to us and just makes a lot more sense to our business, and we won because of it. Which, by the way, in case anyone doesn't know, I like people knowing like where everyone's based out of, what they do. Jordan owns a electrical company. He's an electrician based in the Nashville area that is really wanting to ramp up his service, but right now does service, and he also does some like new construction stuff as well. And so anyway, I think, did the Gutter Brothers have their hand raised? Gutter Brothers.
Yeah.
What's up? How's it going in the gutters?
It's going good, man. My mind's in the gutter. We're doing good.
I just wonder how many jokes have been made about that.
Yeah, my pop told me one day, he said, stop doing all those things you're doing and just put your mind in the gutter. And I took it literally. Yeah. And that was and you're like 22 years ago.
Yeah. And you're like, and it's actually worked out really well, keeping my head in the gutter. Yeah.
It has.
All right. So what good things are happening? Yeah, let's hear it.
So I have a gutter business. I'm based out of the suburbs, Philadelphia suburbs, an area called Delaware County, southeastern Pennsylvania. So what I did is I love change. I try to stay ahead of the curve technologically. I try to make sure things are, I try to keep things streamlined and efficient as possible. And I know with changing times, it's important to keep up with that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So I incorporated 2 new systems last January that's really changed things for me. All I need now is some good, reliable help.
Yeah.
Because trying to find people is probably the biggest challenge I have. But we incorporated a CRM called Jobber. A lot of you might be familiar with Jobber.
Yeah.
We were able to for the first time in 22 years, pick up or put together 100 additional reoccurring service contracts.
Wow.
Because of Jobber. And we also, and Jobbers does so much more. You know, you can do all your scheduling on there, and it's got a text feature where you can openly communicate with customers. There's so much to it, but it's great for the service-based industries. I sound like a rep for Jobber, man. They could use this commercial, huh? And then Dial Pad. You know, Dial Pad's a phone system I incorporated. It's a VoIP system. And that also has a lot of artificial intelligence attached to it. A lot of great features like texting from your landline, which everyone's texting today, especially everyone. There is no especially the generation. Everyone's texting now. All generations are texting now.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot to that. It gives you the on hold stuff. It gives you the ability to transfer between lines. It gives you like a professional feel and look. You can answer your calls wherever you're at if you need to. It's extremely versatile. So if you guys aren't using Dialpad AI, Dialpad's a really great VoIP system if you've ever considered it. And Jobber changed the face of my business with their reoccurring contract program and their built-in email campaign program.
Yeah.
So that's a big win for me. Now I just need to find staff to handle all this extra business.
Yeah, and I may want to talk to you about that on this group call here in just a minute, if that's okay, because we actually talked about you and our team meeting this week and some of the staffing challenges that you're having and how you're paying people. And so we may get into that just a little bit here in a second, because it's I think would be a great beneficial topic for everyone to hear about. But that's awesome. The two things I want to highlight that Brian mentioned that's just like really, really good is that he's making revenue without spending more money through service agreements, right? And the cool thing about a service agreement isn't just the revenue you make from the service agreement. It's that you keep a customer continuously as a repeat customer with a service agreement that leads to a lot higher revenue opportunities in the future. So just to give a for instance, like I know Brian installs great gutters. So like, you know, and I don't know what your warranty looks like, workmanship warranty looks like, Brian, you know, but like if he has a customer, you know, that let's say that they want to get really, you know, into real estate and they decide to like buy a rental property, right? And let's say like the gutters of the rental property are destroyed, right? Like that customer isn't going to now go to Google again because they forgot what gutter company they worked with in the past, right? A year ago, 2 years ago, let's say when they first did their gutters. They're not going to go to Google and try to find a new gutter company and then work with one of your competitors. Because they're on a membership agreement, they're going to call Brian and Gutter Brothers immediately, and that's going to lead Brian to a whole new gutter job, right? Because he has this recurring customer on a membership model. And so we really recommend that to really any business, really especially service businesses is people we really recommend that to. And we can talk more about how to build that for your service business. If you're not doing a membership agreement, there's a few different ways to do it. But just low-hanging fruit, additional revenue opportunity that adds a little bit to the ticket total. But the more important thing is you get a customer for life. Other thing I love that Brian talked about is that he's staying in touch with his current customers through email campaigns, right? So Jobber's a great tool. Some of you guys use House Call Pro. Other people use ServiceTitan. Those are all great tools. We have a software system that helps do email campaigns. It helps stay in touch with your customers, send text messages, you know, as well that we can provide. That's included in a lot of packages that we have for you guys. So anyway, that's the two biggest things I want to highlight. He's not spending any money, but he's keeping customers and he's getting new or he's getting new business by staying in touch with his customers. So, all right, before we move into any questions here, anything else that we're missing wins wise? Anyone else have got like a cool thing that they want to share? I know we're kind of doing like a wins and coaching thing at the same time, but I think these wins have been really cool, really beneficial. Okay, well, let's do this. Typically, Nicole, we guys have been I've been out in Thailand. I've been like getting married and I've been out in Thailand for the past 3 weeks. So And I had the team say, hey, I think we can bring a little bit more value to these group calls, like by really emphasizing questions. Like, let's not just wait till your coaching meeting to get something addressed that's a problem in your business. Like, let's talk about it as a group. I also believe a lot of you guys can help each other. You know, I think a lot of you guys have insight. Some of the best stuff that I've heard in these group calls is stuff that people have said that aren't a part of Redmond Growth, right? You know, and so anyway, does anyone have any hot burning questions that they'd like to bring up business wise that they may want to bring to our team or to the group? Okay, well, you guys are still thinking about it. Brian,
Yes, sir.
can we talk about your hiring stuff?
I would love to.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about your hiring challenges? What's going on there?
Well, I mean, just it's probably the same across the board for most small businesses. Just trying to find good quality candidates that that'll produce, work hard, and it's just hard to find those kind of people. Now, pay has been a particular challenge for me too in my line of work. If you pay them by the hour, they milk the clock. If you pay them by the job, it's never enough. So trying to retain, I've jumping around a little bit here. I've had Gutter Brothers has probably had 150 employees over the last 22 years. All right, so we've got a core that'll last 3 to 5 years, and then we've got this outer circle that comes and goes the entire time. It just comes and goes in and out. So we're always training new people. Sometimes we train them and we utilize them for a few years and we do well. Other times we train them and they walk out the door. That's the risk you take. That's business, right? But
Yeah.
trying to keep and retain help's been a huge challenge for us. Trying to figure out pay structure has been probably the biggest challenge for us. I pay guys piecework. I have a guy that's a subcontractor that comes in, more of a contract employee. I pay his insurance. So he's the highest producer, right? Because he's getting paid for every job he finishes. And then we've got people in there that don't want to do that because they got to work hard if they do that. Right? They're like, well, you've been paying me hourly now for a couple years. I'm your top guy. Why would you change that now? And my answer to them is, look, you're only producing enough income to pay your salary. You know,
Yeah.
I'm essentially just working for this guy, and my contract employees kind of carrying the whole business for these types of individuals. So I offer incentives. You know, you finish this job, I'll give you that job. And there's just, I've got some issues in my staff, and it comes down to trying to find out of the gate that good quality help that works with good morals, ethics, has good work ethic. And it's just tough to find them. I've used places like Indeed and ZipRecruiter, Facebook, all the normal channels. I have it posted on our trucks. We have 7 trucks, so I post it on the trucks. We stick it on everything we can possibly, on our website, on our direct mailings, on our Google ads, everything we can. We just throw a little now hiring because we're always hiring.
Yeah.
And the quality of the candidates, whether I'm writing the script wrong or it's just the area I'm in, it's been impossible to find for me anyway. Now my competitors are all seem to be finding decent people. As a matter of fact, most of my guys are from my competitors. And these are really good people that work hard. The ones that come from these big franchise models or these big corporate businesses that have a lot more to offer. They're a little more polished, and they have the whole training program and all that. They see and more benefits to offer. So they seem to stay with these companies longer, get trained really well, and then burn out and come to me. And I've got these really great, well-trained people with a lot of expectations. I fall a little short, so I try and pivot a little and say, well, I don't have all the benefits they're offering, but I can make you a contract employee and pay you really well, like 15% on every job you complete, off the profit of every job you complete. And that's worked well for those type of people, but for the normal employees, like the inner office staff and salesmen and things of that nature, it's been a huge challenge for me.
I
don't know.
would love to get a show of hands, whether you're clicking your virtual hand or you turn on your screen and raise your hand, of who's felt the same way that Gutter Brothers over here feels. I see Jordan raising his hand. I saw David raising his hand. Kendall's raising his hand, where it's like, how can I compete with these big franchises? And everybody else doesn't seem to have this problem, but I do, and I've tried Indeed. I'm trying all the things. And I not only can I like having a hard time finding people, but I'm having a hard time finding people with good work ethic, and holding them accountable. And I think that with everything that was said, I think there's multiple layers to kind of hit on. And Robert, I'm going to let you do that. But when it comes to hiring and holding people accountable and finding good people, those are all kind of different parts.
Yeah, so I'm going to say something kind of controversial, but I really believe in, because like after doing consulting and helping growing contractors for a number of years, a couple of years ago, me and a really good friend of mine, I used to live in Seattle, Washington, like he was like a hands-on construction guy and I was like a business guy. I was like, hey, let's start a remodeling company in like the Seattle area, like go 50-50 with each other on like profits, like pay you a salary to run the day-to-day, and like let's go into business. And it's like we run into these same problems too, but the controversial thing I want to say is like I really don't believe this is as big of a deal and like as difficult as an issue like to find good reliable help as a lot of people make it seem. Now, that's not to invalidate the realness of everyone's problem, right? That's not to invalidate that this is like a legitimate challenge and this is really hurting us, because I know it is. I just think the only difference between me making that statement and what everyone else can sometimes run into is the processes that I use to kind of manage these problems. And so the first question that I have, Brian, for Gutter Brothers, you've posted everywhere, ZipRecruiter, Indeed. You got like, hey, I got on your truck. Just what is your current hiring process right now? Like, are you currently running job ads at different places? Like just if you were to say, hey, here's my like step-by-step process from posting a job to getting someone hired, what does that process look like?
Well, right now we have Indeed, we have Facebook, we have a local page out here, that jobs on Facebook in the local area. Someone created a page that's pretty popular. It's been around for a long time. I did get a few over the years from that, but Indeed, mostly it's Indeed or ZipRecruiter.
So,
the issue, the challenge I'm having is not just bringing the people in. So most of the small business guys here can relate to this. We wear a lot of hats, right?
Yeah.
So I realized that you take a big company, you take a small company, and they've got a team, a system, a bunch of people that handle different aspects of what's important to an employee, right? Then you've got a small business, and it's usually one or two people that's doing everything. So they're not getting that secure, cushy feeling that they're getting from the big guys out of the gate. And I can't offer them that because I am the IT guy. I am the payroll guy. I am the advertising guy. I am the inventory guy. I am the sales guy. I'm everything. If I got a salary for every position I was in, I'd be retired by now. But, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. So bringing people in on the best platform in the world is great. I could find, even if I found great, reliable people, they require progressive discipline. They require, some type of human resources connection where they can communicate concerns and things of that nature. They require all these things that I just can't always find the time to give them. And here lies the challenge. Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. What I feel like I hear you saying is like, Robert, I don't have a problem so much with actually like finding people or getting applicants. It's like the getting them up to speed and ongoing management of them is the bigger issue. Am I hearing you right?
Correct.
Okay. So first thing is this, is you talked about guys milking the clock. So let's try to solve that problem. So it's like I hire people, they milk the clock, they're wasting my money, jobs take longer than they need to. and I don't really make a profit from it. And you look at these big companies or these other companies, and you're absolutely right. Like there's structure to them, right? So I want to talk about how we could add that to your business, where basically we can add some sort of leadership to ongoing job, like just any ongoing job that's happening right now. Like, is there some sort of foreman? Is there some sort of leader? Like, honestly, the first thing that came to my mind when you were talking is that you have this contract guy, right, who's like a rock star, who you said is like kind of carrying the business. Like, I wonder if there's an opportunity for a guy like him who like knows the business, who's really reliable, who you really trust, to turn into a guy who's not just completing his own projects, but is beginning to manage ongoing projects of like all these other things that are doing, and manage the development of employees and manage the actual productivity level. Because you're wearing all the hats. My concern is that like just people are left on their own, and when like people are left on their own, like they're going to do the kind of stuff that you're saying. And so the objection to that is typically that we hear for like small businesses is like, I don't know if I can afford that, right? And there's some creative ways to actually go about it, to maybe structure and schedule time to where you can bring that sort of accountability to job sites and to your workers without having to spend a lot of time, or without having to like hire someone full time. But that'd be my first thing I'd want to explore. Is it's almost like, yeah, it's like might be expensive to pay someone to manage, but I wonder what kind of results it would bring your business if you did have someone managing all these projects, and if every single project was being managed effectively and profitably and all these things. So
Yeah, well, I agree with you 100% that it's going to cost me a heck of a lot more not to have them areas managed than it would be to bring a guy in to manage those areas. 100%. I feel like if I had the right teams in place for various positions within my business, every one of those positions would be paid for twice over.
yeah.
Because it would free me up to do what I'm really good at.
Yeah. And so this may be like an offsite, like a laser call conversation that I'd want to have with you. But I would want to talk about an actual plan to this contractor guy, this kind of like sub, who's like like kind of like a sub employee who's really good. I'd want to talk about possibly something that you could offer him to begin to actually tighter manage the team. That's the first thing, is like, yeah. So if you had all your jobs running efficiently, I think it sounds like there's some low-hanging fruit there with that guy. Maybe he's not the guy. I don't know enough about it. We could probably find the guy.
Well, I think if I this is a very sensitive subject we're talking about here. So when you just take a guy that's a sub and you put him in a leadership role above the guys that were maybe here before him, that may be a little older than him, it can create a little animosity in the team.
Yeah, and that's a real thing. That's a real thing. And I get that. This is kind of almost why I want to possibly talk with you or work with Alyssa to talk about how to address some of those issues. The only second thing here that I'd recommend doing is, you're talking about HR processes and things like that. Do you have like a team onboarding process of any kind? Like when you bring a team member, like I don't know if one of the coaches can pull up like an onboarding checklist for me real quick and then share the
we
screen.
do. ADP offers an onboarding thing. The problem isn't that I have all these resources available. I just every one of us only gets 100%, right? When you have 10 things to do, each thing's only getting 10%. When you have 20 things to do, that's split even thinner. So you're never giving one area what it needs. Without a team, you can't hit the goalpost. You can't hit the goals at the end zone. You've got to have a team. Everyone's got to be doing something to get us to that goal.
Right.
You could have all the leads in the world. You could have the greatest advertising. You could have all the greatest help. You know, if they're not formulated in if there's like some type of inventory put together, skills inventory put together, you don't have people in the right places, you're not going to go anywhere. First,
Yeah.
you know, there's an assessment out there called Colby. I had
I'm familiar.
another coach recommend. This was like a Fortune 500 business. This lady recommended that everyone I hire, I do a Colby assessment on. It's like $51, and it's going to give me their strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
This way, I'm not putting people in positions that they aren't strong in, and they're not going to get frustrated, burn out, and leave. And this will help me to determine who's strong in follow through, who's strong in sales, and like 4 different areas. And it'll help me formulate a good team. So I did that for about 3 or 4 people, and I did find that worked pretty well. When I was hiring people through that, I did recognize some of their strengths. A couple of my employees matched strengths, which wasn't good, and I didn't have enough options to spread them thin into different areas where they were strong. So yeah, I guess unpack all that.
Yeah, well, I think you've just kind of, so yeah, Bryce is showing an example of an onboarding checklist that we really work on with people that sets the tone of your expectations, your culture, training and development, like in a structured way. It sounds like you already may have a process like this. It just doesn't sound like you have someone that really can like communicate consistently or like onboard or be responsible for these things. So I think what I hear your problem is here, Brian, is it's actually less about like hiring, and it's more about just structure and management. It sounds like that you've built your business to a pretty successful point. You know, 7 trucks on the road. That's really great. Like that's pretty big, you know, especially for a gutter business. I think what I also hear is that you've made the business completely dependent on you, you know, and there is some structure and management and leadership development is going to be the only way to solve that. Right. So it's like, it's not really like a debate that I'm going to have. And I feel like you're on the same page with everything that I'm saying. It's that the only way anything is ever going to change, the only way that your team is going to become more productive, the only way things are going to be done with 100% effort that currently aren't being done that way because you're wearing all the hats, is if we build a structure of management and development of your team. That is the only way it's going to happen. Perfect. You've reached a point where you've reached your capacity. So I think all we need to do is start exploring that a little bit further. Look at the low-hanging fruit. Look at what a win would look like. The last thing, and then we got to move on because there's other people in the room here, and hopefully people are benefiting from the conversation. I also want to see if anyone else has any input. The only other thing is, like you've said, hey, I've tried hourly. Hey, I've tried like doing it on a per job basis. I wonder if there's a middle ground there, compensation wise, where it's like 80% of what you pay someone comes from like an hourly with bonus potential for reaching certain benchmarks on projects.
You know, I reached out to one of your clients. When you gave me a client list before I had hired Redmond Growth, I was able to reach out to another gutter company.
Yeah, are these guys real? Yeah. No, I love it. Yeah.
Oh, I called every single person on your list and then did additional research for 3 months before I actually brought you on, and I couldn't find any reason why not to go with you, and every reason to go with you. So, but anyway, this gutter guy, he said he talked to another guy that you gave him a list for. And that guy recommended how he pays his guys. His guys are average like 15-year guys, and he pays them a percentage of everything they make out of their truck. So a lead guy would get 10%, and a helper would get 8%. So you have a total of 18% off the profits minus the material, obviously, out of that truck for each week that they work. And he says that's been a really successful thing. The only objection I had to that would be, well, what if you needed a guy to go back or to go help or go back to the other guy's job that maybe he made a mistake on?
Like a callback, yeah.
How would you pay
Yeah.
a guy in that sense? You know, would it be like there's gray areas.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Oh boy, we got Jordan in the room. Yeah, let's hear it, Jordan.
So I worked for a company years ago that handled that really well. We were commission based. We got 25% commission as long as we got a 43% profit margin on all of our jobs. And if we had any callbacks, we actually had to go to a callback. And because we were commission based, you really didn't get paid for that callback. So it kind of created accountability. But also it helped you understand what happens when you don't do it right and you get that call back. If you never get that call back, you never understand that. And, but because of that, you know, we wanted to do everything right the first time because we didn't want to have to come back. So it kind of encouraged, it was very incentive based. And I loved it there. It was probably my favorite workplace I ever worked.
Yeah, that's like beautifully said. Appreciate you chiming in, Jordan. And for service companies, I don't know who you or our other gutter client talk to. I think I may know who they talk to, because I have always, for service companies, right, and even for management level employees at like construction or longer term project companies, I have always been a fan of that percentage model, because the great thing about it is it creates that accountability that Jordan talks about. It creates that ownership mindset Jordan talks about. It creates an incentive, and it depends upon how your business is structured, right? But in a lot of service companies, it's like the guy doing the work is also the guy who sometimes is like selling the work. So it creates an incentive to like sell more, right? And from a business management point of view, it turns a fixed cost payroll into a variable cost, where you're only paying people based upon the money coming in the door, which is a huge breath of fresh air as a business owner, that you're not having to worry about meeting the certain payroll margin each week because you've agreed to an hourly, and guys are saying that they're working and they're doing their mind's in the gutter all day and they're doing a terrible job, right? Like, you're not having to worry about that anymore, because whatever you pay your team just becomes a percentage on your P&L that's always going to match the top line revenue.
So it comes down again to having enough management in place that I could properly incorporate this into the pay system.
Yeah, and that's kind of the bigger conversation I think we need to dive into outside the group call. But I would just like mentally just say, like, hey, it sounds like what we've gotten to is that I don't know so much if your problem is a hiring problem, and I don't know so much if it is, because that's kind of what you told me. Like, I don't know if finding people is so much of an issue. It's really building a management and accountability structure. And Brian, even if you didn't hire someone, there's a way for you to do that right now, right? Even if you didn't hire someone. And Bryce, were you wanting to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think it's something that I pulled up a minute ago, but the Business Rock schedule. But there is something I wanted to interject on as well, just briefly. Is you mentioned, Brian, that you've got longer term people that have been there and they don't really want the pay change. In a way, right now, you're kind of being held hostage by your former employees. And a lot of the chaos and stress you feel is because you're managing 5 different pay structures for every single different team member.
100%.
So if you know the way that you want to do your pay structure in your business, it's your business. Make that pay structure the pay structure. And if you need a way to kind of, I guess, get buy-in from your team, it could be almost like a reorganization, where it's like they get status because of their longevity with the company, and it's almost like a title, if you will. But if they want that title and that status to stay with them, this is the pay structure they have to agree to as well. But more so than like a disciplinary act, paint the picture of the positives. Hey, I want to be able to pay you more. I want to be able to provide these benefits to you guys as a team. In order for me to do that, this has to happen. This is a pay structure that I know. I've worked out the math for it to happen that way. I can pay you more, I can give you greater benefits, and moving them into that. That way, there's so much less to keep ordered in your mind about how you pay every single person differently.
We also have a write-up policy and a callback policy that we can give you a copy of and have you go over with your whole team, have everybody sign. That's very along the lines of what Jordan said the company he used to work for did.
I love it. We have a handbook in place with every policy you can imagine possible in it. It's the
That
implementation
might
part
be the
that
problem.
Yeah.
That's usually the problem with handbooks is it's too much and nobody reads them. So we like to do something short and sweet. We go over with the team.
Well, no,
Everybody
it's
gets a copy and sign.
it's that he has a handbook that no one like he gives it to the team and like people read it, and then there's like no one to do anything about any of the write-ups or any of the stuff. And so yeah, I really like what Bryce just shared. Sometimes just sitting down with an employee and saying like, because there's this level of like, hey, it is my business, and don't be held hostage to your employees. And there's this other practical level that's like, don't go do something stupid and like cause this like resentment among your team and like all this chaos. And a lot of times sitting down and showing someone what Bryce talked about, or showing someone that, hey, let me show you on this new model what you would be making if we went to it. Like we've helped a lot of companies go from like hourly to this commission based. And that's how we have done it every time. People are hesitant at first because they like the security, and most people, Brian, aren't like you in that like they're very resistant towards change, right? Like they'd rather do the thing that gets them less pay because it's familiar than do the thing that's going to bring them change. But by sitting down and showing someone that, it gets some buy-in, and then when people experience it, that's when they get real buy-in, because they realize, oh my gosh, I can make so much more. I can be so much more efficient. Like, anyway, Jordan, did you have something to add to that?
It's real short because I know we got to move on, but I was just gonna kind of comment on his retention thing that he was talking about. I would still be there probably working for that company if I didn't move out of Kansas City. That's how much I loved working there, based on their structure and pay structure, because I knew it was up to me how much I wanted to make. And they had excellent work culture. So that type of pay structure is it's awesome. And it's something I actually intend to move towards myself at some point, which we haven't talked about. That's a whole another day, another time.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Brian, from here, I think what we need to do is work with you more specifically on how to set some of this stuff up and build that management structure, how to build some of these rocks in your calendar. So I'll circle up with Alyssa, and we're going to get a plan together to help you do that, because I think we can give you a lot more breathing room without a whole lot of effort. I think it's going to take some time to make some changes, but I think we can get a whole lot more breathing room without a lot of effort, so that you can stay focused on your highest and best use and really do the things that you want to do without feeling so much pressure that your business is going to fail if you ever decide to, God forbid, take a vacation. Which I know people from Philadelphia like typically never leave the city, so like that's okay too. But no, I'm just kidding. One of my
I don't live anywhere near this. I'm about 11 miles south of the city. We try to stay as far away from that place as we can.
Yeah, one of my best friends grew up in Kensington in downtown Philadelphia, like the worst part of Philadelphia, and he's like hasn't been back since. So anyway, anyone else have any questions? We got about like 10
I got a
minutes
question.
left here. Oh no, Fernando, here we go. Let's hear it.
Nothing like too crazy, but I was just wondering if you guys recommend or have any material for to increase sales, like as far as like being a better salesperson, like any books or anything that you guys would recommend. Because I mean, I think we're all right. Like I'm decent at selling, but I would like to get better, So I just want to see if you guys have any books or anything you guys recommend with techniques or just anything to get better.
Yeah, I've got like books, processes, and like just like coaching ideas on that. Brian, did you have something?
Yes. So a book that changed my business, and it might not change yours, but it changed mine. It appealed to me. Og Mandino makes a book called The Greatest Salesman in the World. And
Great,
it's a tiny
excellent
little
book.
$7 paperback book, and mine kind of disintegrated in my visor because I'd have it and read it all the time. So there's 6 ancient scrolls in that book. Each scroll needs to be read 3 times a day for 10 minutes each. What it does is it changes the way you think. As a man thinketh, so is he, right? So it'll transform your mind. And I don't want to be a spoiler on a book, but I would highly recommend you dig into that book. It's an amazing book. It will transform your mind. If you follow the rules and read those scrolls 3 times a day, you'll love it. You'll thank me for it, hopefully in the future.
Yeah, that's actually Brian's greatest problem is he became too good at sales, and now he's dealing with the challenges that he's dealing with.
Exactly.
Because he sold everybody. But no, so I second that recommendation. Og Mandino is one of the greatest, like he's kind of like this Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People type, or like a Zig Ziglar type of guy. But he was like one of the first to do it. And so I second that. There's some like core fundamental books that we recommend here at Redmond Growth. And my team, Fernando, is posting some content to the chat right here. So the first one that's posted is a book called Soft Selling in a Hard World. And that's by a guy named Jerry Vass. And Brian, you might be interested in this book because it's a book not a lot of people have heard of. Like The Greatest Salesman in the World, the Og Mandino book. Like I think he sold like millions and millions of copies of that book. And Soft Selling in a Hard World is I don't know if it's sold a decent amount, but it's actually a book not a lot of people are familiar with. And it's a book that like we require like everyone, all our salespeople especially, but like everyone on the Redmond Growth team has read this book. And the thing, Fernando, I like about that book so much is it's a very tactical and practical book on how to sell. So the premise of the book, like the beginning of the book is the author, Jerry Vass, he's like, hey, a lot of people think like anyone with like a good personality and who's like friendly and outgoing and extroverted is like a good salesperson. But he's like, frankly, that's not the case. And honestly, most people who are like that are the most annoying salespeople in the world that people don't like buying from, right? Like this kind of used car sales kind of personality. So what he says is he's like, the same amount of people that are born salespeople are the same amount of people that are like born neurosurgeons. He's like 2% of the population are like born salespeople. And the reason why he says that is because he looks at sales more as a process than like a personality, if that makes sense. And in that book, it's full of examples. It's full of like how to actually like it's kind of like this other book that Brian recommended. It's not long, you know, and it's more of a book that you can refer to over and over and over. But what it will do is it will show you how to actually develop questions. He calls them probes. How to actually develop questions that identify a customer's greatest level of need, and then how to showcase your business in this beneficial way. So a lot of people sell features versus benefits, right? How to sell your business in a beneficial way to the customer to get them to buy. The difference between selling features versus benefits is the difference between, as a classic example, the Microsoft Zune and Apple's iPod, right? So like no one uses these anymore, right? This is outdated technology. But what was the difference? Like, why did the iPod that Apple sold do so much better than like Microsoft? Do you guys remember this? Their MP3 player called the Zune.
I didn't even know Microsoft made that.
I love it. See, like, no, you didn't even know. So like Microsoft made their own MP3 player. They call it the Zune. The difference is that Microsoft said 32 gigs of storage available on our MP3 player. That's a feature selling, right? That's meaningless to me. What Apple said, what Steve Jobs said is 10,000 songs in your pocket, right? That's a beneficial sell. Why? Because you're selling to the actual thing that the customer is interested in. No one like 32 gigs. That doesn't put a picture in my mind of how that's going to benefit me. But the image of my mind of 32 or 10,000 songs in my pocket, it's like, oh my gosh, I can put my whole library and have it with me at all times and listen to music whenever I want. I'm like, yeah, I want to buy that. So that's what we're trying to do as sales. The other book that we put here is Never Split the Difference. And we read this as a team. Jordan looks like he's read it too. So that's really a book on negotiation, which is like part of every sales process. And so Never Split the Difference is a book written by a guy named Chris Voss. And Chris Voss was the former lead FBI negotiator. And his job was to go into hostage situations where either criminals or terrorists were demanding a ransom in exchange for someone's life. And his job was to get the person, save the person, get them out of the hostage situation while also not paying the criminal what they wanted. And he could only do that by talking to them. And so after he left the FBI, he developed his own kind of a business called the Black Swan Group. And they teach people the art of negotiation. And here's the reason why I like Never Split the Difference is because some of the books on negotiation and sales and persuasion that I've read can seem a little scammy. I don't feel good about emotionally manipulating someone to buy something that they don't need, right? And that's kind of how some sales books can be, not all of them, but and the thing I like about that is the principle that he really builds upon is fairness and quality. Being able to negotiate and sell based on being fair and doing good to someone else, and also providing a quality service. And so those are two books that we highly recommend. I agree with Brian's recommendation as well. Greatest salesman in the world. I think, Fernando, the only other thing I would add is that building a really good sales, becoming a good sales process is less about being a certain type of person, and it's more about building a great process. And
that's
so
something I'll interject there. The link that I put in there, the YouTube link, is a group call from a couple weeks ago. That's 4 clear and actionable changes or actions you can make in your sales process that are not dependent on the words you use or kind of this methodology or strategy going on in your head from reading a lot of these books. So maybe a more simple approach to kind of improve some of the sales process too. And this is what Robert's talking about now, is the steps to a process that are the same every time that really enhance a customer experience.
Right.
So that's what that YouTube link is.
Now those books are going to be useful to for the actual hows in the process. So it's like how to find someone's biggest pain points. It's how to represent your company to a customer in a beneficial way. But what's more important, what a lot of business owners fail to do that's really costly and they miss opportunity because of it, is they fail to build a process where these kind of needs identifying, these probing questions, followed by these benefits that are offered, aren't structured. And so the business owner becomes this really good salesperson that knows how to sell, and they sell every deal and hold it, versus they learn a methodology that they can follow every time, and that they can also enhance right? So if like we're doing something different every time, we can't make something better. So if we have a process, we can enhance it, and then we can train other people in it, right? Then we can.
You
build
guys can
in-
help us do that process too, right?
Yeah, that's like what we do. that's like what Redmond Growth does, especially at like your level of coaching. You know that your package that you're in with us on. Like we could absolutely help you with that. So anyway, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up today. That was really, really good discussion.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, please come next week ready with questions, ready with wins. We do have a topic that we can talk about, but we want to get people's questions answered and get people talking and helping each other. So that's kind of the direction we're heading in. But yeah, like we always do, let's unmute our mics. Growth on 3. I'm going to count down. We're all going to say growth. Okay? 3, 2, 1. Growth! Yes.
Bye,
All right,
guys.
everyone have a great
Have a good
rest of the week.
Thanks for all your time.